A now former corrections officer at the jail in Rugby faces felony charges on accusations he sexually assaulted two female inmates while working at the jail. State prosecutors charged Anthony Aadland with two C-felony charges of sexual abuse of a ward. In the affidavit, prosecutors said Aadland engaged in inappropriate relationships with the inmates, with encounters in certain areas of the jail where there are no cameras, such as the attorney's room. Investigators say the inmates told them he showed them inappropriate photos of himself on his cell phone. When pressed on the matter, prosecutors say he admitted to passing notes but denied the acts or showing images. Michael Graner, the jail administrator, says Aadland was fired following his arrest, adding in part, "These allegations are concerning and upsetting. The jail does not promote nor condone staff misconduct. The environment that we operate within does not encourage such behavior." He goes on, "We will continue our daily efforts to detect and prevent staff misconduct from occurring." Now, we'll have Graner's full statement in this story on our website. Aadland will appear for his preliminary hearing and arraignment on May 13th in Pierce County. We also reached out to a spokesperson for the DOCR and the Pierce County Commission, and we'll update you as we learn more.